Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming, where today we are doing the first in a series of videos on the basics of playing Warframe. We may eventually get into some more advanced concepts as we go down the road, but right now we're going to talk about three things that I think are exceedingly important for you checking out this game. Now, if you haven't checked out my video on should you play Warframe, I put a link in the description. I will put a link in the description in this video as well. If you're interested in checking out Warframe, please use the link in the description to sign up to play. You and I will both get a in-game bonus if you choose to do that. So it's definitely worthwhile for you doing that. So let's talk about movement. So when you first play Warframe, the movement can be a little bit confusing. And two things I suggest doing, and again, you don't have to do this, but I suggest putting sprint on toggle. So you can see here my walking speed and my sprint speed are different. Pretty much most of the time I have sprint on, and I think it's worthwhile. Also, I can just tap the sprint button here to do a roll, so that's something to keep in mind. If I hold it in, then that will make me go in between the two, but that's something I personally suggest doing. And also, I suggest putting your map, so you have a mini map in the upper left, I suggest locking that in position. There are missions where you're going to try to find a certain point or get to the exit or something like that. When you're doing that, and then there are markers to show you where to go on certain maps, certain objectives, depending on what you're doing, I suggest putting it on lock because I just personally find it easier when that mini map is not rotating. So going around, you can see you can jump. You probably figure out you can double jump. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but just that may get a little bit of boring. So a little bit of boring, you know what I mean? A little bit boring. So first of all, let's talk about the most important thing in the game. You'll hear it referred to different things, but usually it is referred to as a bullet jump. So you may see I'm running. You can see the distance that it takes me to get across this room. Now pay attention to the distance at the time. You see how quick I got across that gap. What I did was I used a bullet jump. So to use a bullet jump, you hold in crouch. You don't have to do it for very long, and then hit the jump button. And you can see that I went into that spiral jump there. I can do it while moving also, and if I do it while moving, I go into a slide. Now, many games like Destiny have a slide like this. Now, this one has a little bit better forward momentum and helps you keep your momentum. But if I'm going slide and then jump, I go into that bullet jump. So I can also, again, just like anything else, I can double jump, so I can jump in the process of that bullet jump to go even further. Last but not least, while doing so, I can actually throw in a slide. You see I threw in a slide at the end of there to even extend that even further. So there's an example of the kind of main thing you going to want to learn is that bullet jump. You can double jump, you can roll while in the air. Now, that's pretty cool. Something else to bear in mind is you can add range to your upward jumps. If I choose to look straight up in the air and then I bullet jump, you can see, now I don't have a ton of room here, but I can get way more air than if I would just do a traditional double jump. So you can bullet jump by crouching and jumping straight into the air. The other way you can do this is looking directly down at the ground and bullet jumping. Now, so the angle you look is going to vary as far as, so like for example, if I want to jump up this here, you can see I can kind of put it at an angle. The way you're looking will determine the way you bullet jump. But again, if you look straight down or straight up, you can use your bullet jump to get to much higher distances. So that's a pretty great thing. So you're going to want to work on that. Whether you're playing on a controller or on a keyboard, whatever your button combination is, you may want to change your button combination. I know a lot of people on keyboard swap the control and shift. Shift is usually the run and control is the crouch, and because you're going to be crouching so often to do that bullet jump, it's just easier to use shift. Whatever it is on controller, all of the controls are fully customizable, and you can switch between keyboard and mouse on the PC, and on the keyboard I'm pretty sure the controls are also customizable there. So there's the basics of the bullet jump. You can do it, you can double jump, you can roll while running. All of that is pretty nice. Let's add a little bit more to that. There's also the aim glide. Now you see here, I can Superman and fly across the map and slow down time while I do it. And I can do this for quite some time. Now I'm not slowing down time in the game, I'm only slowing it down for myself, but I'm slowing my momentum down. So, normally if I aim down the barrel, you'll see this is what I do. Like you would expect, it zooms in a little bit and I move more slowly, like the way most third-person shooters move. However, if I'm airborne when I'm doing it, I get this kind of bullet time maneuver where I am slowed down and I can get even more distance by doing that. And you can see I'm jumping around the walls and I'm doing these combos staying up in the air. So something else to bear in mind is while you are in the air, you can use that bullet jump, that glide in the air. Much like you can glide along the ground, you can glide while in the air by using your zoom in aim button. And just to let you know, if there's a mission that involves killing enemies while sliding, that counts as sliding as well, kind of air sliding. So now we have the basics that you want to practice of the bullet jump, aim the double jump, the slide, the bullet jump directly into the air. I prefer looking up. Some players prefer looking down to get more air. Anytime you're in the air, you can use this glide to slow yourself down and get more momentum. And if you want to get a little bit more speed while you're gliding, you can throw a roll into that. You can continue holding down the glide, but throw a roll in to gain more momentum, but then go right back into that glide after rolling while in the air. All of that sounds pretty cool. Another thing you can do is if I choose to aim while up against a wall, you can see I can hang onto the wall. Now, it lasts a limited amount of time. It just ended there when I came off. But you can latch on the walls as well if you jump up and then you use the aim while against the wall. Just like that, and then I can jump off the wall as well. When doing that, I can also melee off the wall. So there's all kinds of cool combinations that you can do. Last but not least, I don't know if we'll come across it in this game, but you may come across zip lines on missions. The zip lines, you may hit an interact button. It is X on the keyboard. Again, you can rebind that. I'm not sure what it is on the controller, but you can use those to get around as well and latch onto them, and they're useful for sneaking around and for, you know, getting to certain areas and things like that. I do want to point out too, there are these lockers you can open. You can open the green ones and not the red ones. You'll see different versions of these lockers or these caches throughout different maps, and also different items that you can either shoot or hit with your melee weapon. There are also explosive items as well. Can you see ahead of me that glimmer right there that happens right there? That happens every once in a while. That's also a way of signifying where there are breakable lockers and things like that that you can open up. That's a way to get resources. That's pretty important early in the game, and really later in the game it's nice to have too. So there's kind of the main idea of the movement of the things you want to practice. Just to give you a little bit of idea of how we can chain these things together, so let's make sure that we are running, and let's head towards some enemies and kind of show some of this off in action. Now you can see this marker. This is an elimination mission where we want to take out enemies, and I can look on my map too and see, oh, it wants me to go this way, but maybe it wants me to go up. Here's some bad guys. Now you can do finisher moves on enemies. Now they were highlighted yellow or orange there for a specific reason because of the companion I have equipped, but that's some later game stuff. But just to let you know, you can do finisher moves. Finisher moves don't necessarily guarantee to finish off an enemy, but these are pretty low level enemies for where I'm at right now. So the finisher moves are going to finish them off, and even if they don't finish off an enemy, they will do more damage. So we can again use these combinations of things to do all different slides and things like that. Another thing you want to bear in mind, don't worry about what that thing is, we'll get to that eventually, is your energy usage while you're in a mission. You can see I'm going to use my first ability here. It's normally kind of a small area stun, but again, I'm pretty powerful and these enemies are pretty low level, so it will also just kill that enemy. I have this wave that I can do here. I've got this barrier of defense I can put up, and then I also have an AoE freeze. One thing you want to bear in mind is every Warframe is going to have 4 unique abilities to them. So here, let's go ahead and do our AoE freeze, and it will shatter these lower level enemies because of, you know, the power level that this Warframe is at on this mission. A lot of times in higher level missions that will do some damage, but it's mainly used to freeze enemies in AoE. Each character is going to have their own abilities. You can see in the bottom right there's a 16. That's the basic level of energy. I can get more energy by getting these blue orbs that will show up. You will also see there's a 99 kind of above that. My third ability is that dome, and it's showing that I have 99% health left on my dome. So there's a lot of information to be had here. You can see also in the upper right there is my shields, which are at 1085, my health, which is at 860. My shields will regenerate as you would expect in a game like this. So now that you've got kind of an idea of the basics of movements, the bullet jump that you can also use vertically that you really want to get down, you can double jump in general and using your bullet jump, and kind of the wall latch And all of that are all things you're going to want to bear in mind as playing the game. Now, something else I can do, there's a quick melee attack, or if I really want to, I can hold down the button that I can swap my primary and secondary. I actually don't have a secondary equipped right now. There are some reasons you may want to do things like that we'll get into in some of the later videos. Actually, we'll mention that briefly when we talk about mastery rank in here. Now, these are maximum rank right now, so it doesn't really matter. And you can see when you start each mission, you have kind of a thing that the mission wants you to do. This mission, and you can check it anytime by coming into this pause menu. This mission wanted me to get a certain number of melee kills. You can see that I accomplished that. Oh, these are annoying, by the way. I will show these off. So right now, I have my melee weapon, just my melee weapon equipped, instead of using quick attacks by holding down the switch button like I was talking about. Or I can switch back and then just use quick attacks with it. I would normally talk about channeling and things like that, but all of that's changing in a new melee update that I'm sure we'll talk about when it comes out. So we're not going to get too much into how melee works other than the finishers. So you see this bar here, see how it's orange? I shoot it, and now that barrier is gone. That barrier takes away my energy if I go through it not paying attention. So now that we've talked about those basics, let's talk about the weapons and the warframes and the mods and how all of this comes together and the basics of how modding works. Because the movement is something that you really want to get down. And I suggest go ahead and play through the basics, the kind of starter missions that the game will give you, and then you'll eventually get able to go to the world or the universe or the solar system map, I guess, and choose specific missions after you complete those kind of tutorial missions. But I really suggest getting used to the movement system and the bullet jump and all of that before you kind of get into those, but before you really play the game that much, because this game is a super fast-paced, frenetic game, and learning that movement system and learning just how quick you can move around the levels is something that you're definitely going to want to do, and it's going to make the game much more enjoyable. And I didn't really know about this. I didn't know about these systems until I really got into the game. So the alarms are going off here. I'm going to hack this real quick. There are several different ways that you can hack things. That was a very basic one again, because this is low level, where basically you want to do a timing thing. So let's go ahead and put a cut here. And now that we've talked a little bit about movement, we'll talk about mods. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our arsenal here. Now, if we go into our arsenal, we can go into Equip, and you can see the different Warframes that I have, and then other ones that are available in the game. As you can see, it's a pretty lengthy list. So this is the one I'm using right now, but let's instead go to one that is not leveled up to full. You can see these are max. Each Warframe and weapon can go up to level 30 max. We can see this one is at level 14. So let's go ahead and equip, and then let's go into upgrade. There are lots of things you can do in the upgrades here. Now, eventually you'll get these things called auras that allow you to add more mod capacity to things. Basically, your mod capacity, you can see this one here is at 19. There's a reason it's at that, but normally your mod capacity, and actually this right here is the reason that it's above what you would expect, because again, this adds the mod capacity, because normally the mod capacity you start with right when you begin the game is only going to be 1. That's very low. It'll go up as you get mastery rank. So mastery rank is something we'll talk about just shortly here in this video, but as your mastery rank goes up, your starting capacity for weapons and for warframes to put mods in is going to go up according to that mastery rank. So here you can see, if we look at Flow, Flow has a cost of 4. You can see that in the upper right, and you can see I have 3 copies of this mod in the upper left. And you can see it adds 25% to our max energy. Well, that's pretty simple. So we have an upgraded Flow on here right now, so we'll take it off. And if I take this off, you'll see the changes that take place over here. So this is pretty well done. You can see red number means it's going down. As you would expect, green number means it's going up. So right now, Flow takes, this Flow takes 8. Now, you might say, I thought Flow took 4. You can see this one is leveled up, and you can see it by the stars at the bottom here. This one is leveled up all the way to 1 short of max rank. We'll talk about how to level them up in a moment here. So obviously, as you level them up, they are going to get better and more powerful. So you can see this adds 125, and the Flow we were looking at before adds 25% max energy. So each time I level this up, it's going to add another 25% max energy, and it's also going to increase the cost by 1. You can see this has been leveled up 4 times, so it increases the cost up to 8. You might say, well, I only have 6 of 19 capacity left right up here, so how can I add this? Well, it looks like I can't, right? Well, I can add it to this here, because there's a thing called polarity. You can see here there's a dash. Basically, the main polarities, they're often referred to as V, D, or dash. There are some other ones as well. And you can see here we've got some polarities. Here we've got some V polarities, and we've got this dash polarity. So I'm going to put this dash on here. And you can see it only costs 4. Well, when something matches polarity, then it is going to cost half as much. If it doesn't match a polarity, so normally if I were to say put steel charge in, okay, it would cost... Oh, yeah, that's an aura mod. Never mind. Let's take something that's cheap. Let's take provoked here. Okay, this costs 4. If I were to put it into this, it'll cost 2. If I were to put it in this, it's a polarity that doesn't match. It'll actually cost 8. It'll double the polarity cost. Now, these are a little bit different. These aura mods, but that's something you're not going to come across too much early in the game. Just to let you know, though, they are going to add capacity no matter what. If they match the polarity, they will add more. If they don't match the polarity, they will add less. Just to let you know how those work. So those are the basics of polarity. Now, there are ways that you can change the polarity, and if we go to actions here, right now, we don't have the ability to polarize. In order to polarize something, I need an item called a forma, and the item needs to be at level 30. If I use one of these polarization things, and I have a forma in order to do it, we'll talk more about forma later on and things like that, I can basically add a slot or change an existing slot. So if I want a certain setup and I'm not going to use a certain polarity or I have too many for the setup I want to do, I can change an existing one as well or add one to a spot that doesn't have one. So just to let you know, though, that will reset the Warframe or the weapon that you're using to level 1 again, and then you will have to build it back up. You will still have the minimum mod capacity based on your mastery rank. There is, however, a way to change that. You can double the mod capacity on a weapon or a Warframe, and that is in actions. So you can see here there's the upgrade. You'll have this ability on both your Warframes and your weapons. You can see, do I want to install an Orkin Reactor? Orkin Reactors and Catalysts for weapons are items that you'll get in the game. Again, we'll talk about this. They may come up in alerts, which is a special mission type, or they may have the blueprints for them that come up in certain missions that you have to do 3 of in order to get the blueprint. It's always worth doing that. Whenever you see an Orkin Catalyst or Orkin Reactor and you have the option of doing it, go get it because they're worth having, and that doubles your mod capacity. So right now we have a capacity of 19. It would double it to, what is that, 38, right? Okay, so normally your mod capacity can be 30 without one of these aura mods, and then it will bring it up to 60 at a level 30 item. That's the way these work, whether you're talking about a Warframe or a weapon. We're not going to talk too much about upgrading your Warframes here. In general, armor reduces damage. There are certain types of damages that can get through armor, but in general, armor reduces most types of damage, so it's nice. Health and shields are nice. In general, though, players, for the most part, really prioritize health and armor in this game. You can, again, increase your power that you have available and all of that. Now, I do want to point out, you can have what are called damaged mods. Now, damaged mods, basically, and actually here, or flawed, excuse me. Flawed or damaged mods, they basically have less capacity. See, this one at 36 is not a interval of 25. It's a lower interval, and basically you'll get some of these early in the game. They can't be upgraded as far. So in general, it may not be a good idea to spend a lot of investment on these, although they don't cost that much to upgrade. They don't have that many slots to upgrade. So you're not really wasting that much of resources if you want to use them. Just know that you'll eventually want to find the non-flawed or damaged versions of them later on, that they are going to be more powerful. So that's how they work. Now, we're not going to talk too much about specifically how to mod a Warframe. However, we will talk about the basics of a weapon. So here are the primary weapons I have right now. There are secondary weapons and melee weapons as well. But I don't know, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Now, your setup isn't going to look like this right away. You can see this one has 60 capacity. There are not auras available for weapons, although there is something called stances for melee weapons. But again, this is some stuff you'll get into later on. You can see that this is a weapon that I have actually formed a couple of times. I believe I formed this weapon 4 times. Yeah, you can see this 4-star here. I've formed my heck twice, so I've upgraded this a total of 5 times in order to get more stuff on there. So just to give you an example of what a weapon might look like after you've done quite a bit of work. And I don't even have all the stuff I might want for this build. This is just a build that I've done. This is, you know, later game stuff. I wouldn't be too worried about this right now. But what I do want to talk about some basics as for what you want to put on weapons. In general, each weapon type is going to have a certain thing that just does straight up damage. These are great. And if you have them, you're going to want to put them on initially. You see, if we move this, we're going to get a big difference here to our damage. Now, the reason these are always nice is they're going to upgrade all 3 of the main damage types. And this actually isn't a great example because this is a purely elemental weapon. So you also have weapons that can upgrade or add certain elemental types. So instead of looking at this one, actually, let's look at something that isn't purely elemental. Purely elemental weapons are not completely uncommon, but they're less common than weapons that have these 3 things: impact, puncture, and slash. The IPS damage types you may hear people refer to. Now here's the thing. Early in the game and later on, you're going to get weapons that increase one of these things. They're going to increase impact or puncture or slash or some combination thereof. In general, I do not suggest using them a whole lot. So this is something, I basically got this at 30. I haven't really played around with this build a whole lot. This is just kind of the setup I have right now. However, I highly suggest not focusing on these things, and I'll show you why. So for example, here's Shredder. This adds 5% slash. If I add this, and I can add it on this polarity slot, you can see it's going to increase my slash damage. Whereas something like Prime Point Blank here, and we're not going to get into Prime mods, again, this is something later on. They're basically better versions. Point Blank is the basic increased damage mod. That's going to increase all of my damage types. Now, I will suggest if you have these and they're all you have, they're okay. However, I will say early in the game and later in the game, things that do elemental damage are in general better than things that increase your IPS damage types, because they only increase 1. Now, you may have a weapon that is almost entirely in one type. Okay, then it makes sense. Let's say you have a weapon that is almost entirely slash. There's like 10 damage in each and 200 in slash. Then adding something that adds to slash damage is definitely going to be helpful to you, but it's going to be less helpful to you when, like most weapons, it's a little bit more balanced. Weapons don't tend to be 100% balanced. Some of them kind of are. But in general, elemental mods are better. So, for example, if I remove this blaze and then I add this blaze back on, you can see that it's basically adding to all damage types. So this is adding overall damage, which is great, and heat damage. So let's look at Chilling Reload. Now this increases in reload speed and cold. If I take this off, it's basically lowering my overall damage much more. If I add it, it's adding to my overall damage much more than one of the IPS mods. So the one thing I will say early on is if you have elemental damage, in general, that's better than your IPS damage. Now, there's all kinds of interesting combinations you can do. For example, you see, because I added, now if I take Chilling Reload off, I'm just doing the heat damage from this. Actually, yeah, you can see my blast damage completely went away, but I have heat damage. If I had Chilling Reload, now, it's blast damage, which is a combination of heat and cold. Basically, going from top to bottom, left to right, when you add elemental mods to something, different combinations will do different types of damage. We're not really we're gonna do a video on damage, but just so you know, by adding 2 different types of damage, you will get different combination damages by adding elemental damage. Again, we'll explain this more in a later video, but the point that you need to know right now is, in general, IPS is not as good as elemental damage. If you don't have the elemental damage to add, then add these, or if you have a weapon that is almost entirely one of the 3 damage types, then of course those are pretty good. So let's now look about what we're going to do with these mods. So we're going to go to our modding table here. You can technically access it from where I was at, but this is a list of all the mods I have right now. As you can see, I have a whole bunch. Now, let's say I want to upgrade an existing mod. So I can actually do this from where I was at, but I wanted to come to the mod table specifically. I can actually access this from where I was at and basically look at the mods I already have equipped on a weapon. But in order to do that, I'm going to do fusion. So let's say I want to upgrade Seeking Force. I can click on it and I can click on fusion. If I want to, I can click on this to then level it up. So fusing a mod is basically making it more powerful. It's going to cost two different in-game resources. It's going to cost credit and it's going to cost endo. Endo is something that you'll earn from some missions. Certain missions, maybe like excavation or things like that, may have it as rewards. Enemies will drop endo. And then there's eventually also things called item stars and sculptures that you can put the stars into sculptures and sell them. We'll talk about that in another video down the road. But endo is a nice resource to have, obviously along with credits. And then by doing this, I can spend that, I apply fusion, and upgrade a mod. So all of that is actually pretty simple. You need those two resources to upgrade things. Just to give you an example of what these item sculptures look like, there you go. They're kind of cool. This is something to look forward to. I've got quite a few that I'm able to sell for endo right now that I haven't done yet. You can also transmute mods. So let's say I pick 4 random mods. Oh, and yeah, because... Oh, okay, yeah. Basically, one of the ones, yeah. Cannot transmute ranked mod. Okay, so, yeah, this one. Let's remove this. And... yeah, this one. Okay, this one's ranked. So there we go. If I choose 4 unranked mods, I can transmute mods. Basically, I spend a certain amount of credits. I can pick for the same mod. In general, I would select a mod that you have a whole bunch of that you're not going to use, like a common mod that you just have a ridiculous amount of. And you can spend credits to get a random mod. I don't suggest doing this. You certainly can, but the cost can get pretty high. And while you can get a like a rare mod, basically these are the common, these are the uncommon, and these are the rare. And then there are specialty mods as well, like Riven mods and things like that that we won't really get into right now. I don't really suggest doing this, because while you can get some cool stuff, in general, I consider it a waste of credits. You can also, let's say I want to select these, let's say I want to select all 3. I can sell these mods if I want to for credit value. However, I also don't really suggest doing that. It's relatively easy to earn credits in-game by doing missions. Endo can be a little bit more rare. I can dissolve these mods into Endo as well. This is what I suggest doing with your excess mods. Remember I said Endo is the way you upgrade your mods? Well, you're eventually going to end up with a lot of excess mods. You can select your excess mods. So let's go to, I believe there's a duplicate somewhere here. Here we go. So it'll list, look, I have 131 Swift Death. So I could go, let's say I want to hang on to it just in case I want to use it. I could click on it. I could select 130 of them, hit OK. And actually, why don't I do this right now? I can dissolve into 650 endo, sell. Make sure you want to sell these items, and you see this for endo, not for credits. You want to make sure. Okay, and there's the way, another way you can get endo in order to upgrade your mods. So, now that we've talked about the movement system, we've talked about mods, let's talk about mastery rank. So right now, you can see I am mastery rank 13. So I've been playing the game for a little while, but hopefully I'm still new enough that I am not just passing over stuff that maybe somebody's playing the game for too long that may not be that helpful to players if they don't explain things in a way that's helpful to new players, but still with enough experience to hopefully explain things well enough. So how do you get mastery rank? Well, the main ways you get mastery rank, first of all, is actually upgrading your Warframes and your weapons. So you see this Banshee Prime is 14. It will, I believe, I'll get 200 of the affinity, which is, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yep, I'm on solo right now. So your affinity is basically this bar here. Okay, I don't want to go into show profile. There may be some spoiler things or whatever in there, and you want to fill that up. You get affinity by leveling up your Warframes per level. I believe it's 200 per level, and your weapons is 100 per level. Now, once you get it up to 30, let's say you add a Forma, like I mentioned previously, to something, and then you reset it back to 1. You do not get affinity for leveling it up again. You only get affinity leveling up something for the first time. Let's say you level up something to 15, you end up selling that item, and then you decide you liked it, and you go get a new one, and it's back at level 1. You will not get affinity for levels 1 through 15, but you will then get affinity for level 16 through 30. So basically, the first time you level up something all the way to 30, you get affinity for it. That is why I suggest leveling up Warframes and weapons you don't necessarily like, even though you may not like them. It's still worth doing it for the mastery rank. Now, one thing worth mentioning when we're talking about leveling up your weapons is what weapons should you level up? Well, I highly suggest you initially start with the weapons that you can purchase for in-game credits. They are very simple to get. You can see a lot of these items you can use for platinum. You can get with platinum. Now, many of these items you can actually build by getting the blueprint, which we can look at in a second. However, there are items that you can get for credits, like this Bratton here. So one of the starting weapons you can start the game with is the Mark 1 Bratton or the Mark 1 Paris. So one thing I will suggest for newer players, if you haven't started the game yet, as far as choice of weapons and as far as warframes, that really is up to you. If you really want a suggestion, I personally prefer Excalibur. I think it's probably the strongest of the three frames. However, it is kind of melee focused. So if you're not into melee focused, if you're into speed, pick Volt. And technically the techiest is probably Mag. Mag may be considered the weakest of the three starting frames right now. However, they do updates all the time. They do slight changes and tweaks and complete reworks on frames. So it doesn't mean that Mag will be the weakest in the future. And there are certain things that Mag can do well, I don't want to say. But Excalibur is a melee-focused one, just to keep that in mind if you're not interested in that. But these weapons, for example, you start with the Mark 1 Bratton, you can get an upgraded Bratton. I can purchase this for 25,000 credits. I believe there's also the Paris here, and well, there's the Mark 1. So even though if you start with the Bratton and not the Mark 1 Paris, then you can also purchase the Paris. So leveling these up is going to be useful to you, and it's really easy. You're going to get credits from pretty much every mission, from enemies, from bonuses, for rewards, for opening lockers and caches and things like that. So, leveling these up is great. In general, after you get rid of particularly some of the early game weapons, you can then sell them to open up more slots. And I suggest using the 50 platinum you start the game with to buy weapon slots and Warframe slots. However, even with using that 50 platinum, those are going to fill up pretty quickly. You can go into your inventory and then sell items. So these are easiest to get if there are other ones that you meet the master rank for that you can build. So there's the Mark 1 Bratton if you didn't start with that. And again, which weapon you start with, do you want to start with a silence bow or with a submachine gun? Up to you. Do you want to start with the, I'm trying to remember, the secondary or throwing knives, or that's totally personal preference. Play around with them in the beginning missions when you have the option to pick one up. Use one for a little bit, run back, pick up the other one, use that one. Decide which one you kind of like. It doesn't really matter because you can get the other ones very easily. So your starting weapon choice for the melee weapon for your secondary and primary don't really matter that much. You're able to easily purchase other ones and then upgraded versions of those as well, like the Bratton. However, you're going to run out of slots. So you can go into your inventory. So if I go here, I go to equipment, I go to inventory, I can choose to sell off items. So I can click on the weapons that I have. I can click on it and you can see I can sell it for 5,000. The one thing I would suggest is that you go to a website, you can Google like weapons used in crafting or things like that, and check to see if the weapon you're about to sell is used as a component in crafting another weapon. So like I said, if we want to go check out the blueprints up here, we can go check out, for example, so let's go categories, let's go weapons, let's go melee weapons. Okay, we can see here, we can click on something, and everything that has the blueprint available, we can see what it's going to take to build it. But certain weapons use other weapons in order to build them. So if I look at the Boltus, for example, and check out the blueprint, I actually need a Boltor and a Cronin in order to build this. So I probably don't want to sell the Boltor and the Cronin if I don't want to pay the platinum to buy this weapon. So these are things that you want to check online before selling a weapon. Most weapons won't be used in crafting other weapons, but there are quite a few that are. And I believe the bow, is that how it works? Yeah, this the bow. Check the blueprint here. Yeah, so the bow doesn't do it, but you can use the bow to build into the Typedo, I believe, which then you can build into the Legion, which is, I probably my favorite melee, my personal favorite melee weapon in the game. I think it's how it works. I don't remember exactly, but again, you want to bear that in mind. So you want to buy those weapons, sell the ones that you're never going to use again, and you don't need to level things up. I also do suggest once you get to Master Rank 4, build the heck. You can use that for the rest of the game if you want to, and you get to and there's other stuff you can eventually join, like a guild that gives you access to blueprints for other weapons as well. You can always check on here. I have the blueprints only checked so that only things that have blueprints available that I can't buy with just platinum that I can actually build are going to be in there as well if you want to do that. And then this is where you build things eventually, you know, when you unlock all this stuff at your bench. So purchase those weapons. After you've purchased those weapons, rank those up to 30, gotten rid of the ones you're not going to use to build into something else. Look some other weapons that you can get the blueprints for. You have the Master Rank 4, and you can get the items in order to build those weapons up in order to gain Mastery Rank. Now, something I want to point out is when you're in a mission, you will get affinity for, experience on your Warframe, say for using abilities, for killing enemies with your abilities, and also for killing enemies with your weapons. I highly suggest, in general, playing on public. So right now, I am on solo. I very highly suggest playing on public. Maybe for your first few missions, maybe, you know, for those tutorial missions, maybe for a mission or two playing on solo until you get used to the movement, how some of the missions work. And for the mission specifics, you can actually go to your codex on your ship and see examples of how different types of mission types and things like that work in case you're a little bit confused. So by doing that, though, you'll get used enough to the game that you can then play on public. Whenever other players join you on missions, especially like defense missions or missions you're going to be killing a lot of enemies, there is a shared experience that you have between you and the other players as long as you're within a certain range with each other. So in general, you're going to level up more quickly with more players. Now, you will get credit for using your weapons, and you'll get bonus credit at the end for experience after you've beat the mission. In general, you want to beat the missions to get the most experience. Now, that is bonus experience basically, so you'll get a certain amount for using your weapons to kill enemies, but you'll get experience for all of the weapons that you have equipped. So let's say hypothetically, I just got a new primary weapon, and I want to level it up quickly. Well, I can unequip, so I can go to equip, go to none, hit equip, and let's say I have something that's a level and I want to level it up. By only having that item equipped, whether it's a primary or secondary melee, you can do missions with just a melee weapon if you want to. Now, in general, I wouldn't suggest going into super high level stuff for where you're at in the game in order to do that, but you can farm some stuff. You can farm missions where there's a lot of enemies in order to have all of that experience. Instead of being shared between your weapon, go to the one weapon or the two weapons you have equipped. Let's say you have a secondary that you really don't like, but you want to level up. You have a primary you like. Well, you can use that primary and that's secondary, and even if you're not using it, even if you hate using it, after a while you'll still get it to level 30, and it'll move up more quickly if you don't also have a melee weapon equipped, or vice versa, however you want to do it. So the less weapons you have equipped, the more experience will go to that one weapon, and if that's also the only weapon you're using to kill enemies, then it'll go up even quicker. The other main way you're going to get mastery rank is by doing missions out here. The first time you do a mission on your star map, you will get credit for it. How do you know it's the first time you do it? Well, let's go to a planet that I haven't quite finished off yet. Have I finished Sedna? No. Okay, Sedna's the one that I'm still working on. So, do you see these blue pips here? This means I haven't done this mission yet, and obviously the missions later on are unlocked. The first time I do a mission, I'm also going to get affinity. There's also, you'll see during missions, you'll even pick up these little orangish, yellowish things that also give you affinity. You'll see that within the mission. So doing missions you haven't done yet and basically clearing the star map is also another way to get affinity. Now, once you get to the point where you have filled up this bar down here, it'll say you're available to take your mastery rank test. Now, one thing about this test, you have to pass it in order to move up in mastery rank. If you fail the test, you can't do it for another 24 hours. Now, don't sweat that too much, because there are two things you can do. First of all, you can obviously watch videos about what's coming up, and once you reach a relay, you can actually practice the test. I believe the first relay you will reach is here on Mercury, I believe, so let's go ahead and go to one. And this is super important. If you want to be sure you're going to pass a test and not waste time, after you're able to get to a relay, you're able to go talk to Cephalon Samaris, I believe is his name. And nearby him, there is a place where you can test this out. So let's go ahead and load into this relay here. And then once this is loaded, we will actually fast travel to him. And this is something I highly, highly suggest if you're worried about failing your mastery test and you don't want to, waste that time. So let's go to fast travel. Let's go to Cephalon Samaris, and I'll show you. If you just look to the right, as soon as you zoom in here, you will see all the mastery tests available. 1, 2, so on and so forth. And if I click on one, oh, I must have a weapon of each type in order to do the mastery test, but I can either do the test from here. Now I can do it directly from my main menu. I can click on, there'll be a thing available, say take your mastery test right here up top, or I can go here and do it from here. But the other thing I can do, if I go to this place, I can click on a mastery test and I can practice it. So I can practice it as many times as I want before doing it. Now getting mastery rank is obviously going to be beneficial to you because it is going to let you get weapons that you wouldn't have access to before, and it's also going to, like I said, allow you to put more mods in your warframes and your weapons initially, and it's also going to give you things like the ability to have more void traces, which we'll talk about eventually, and lots of other stuff. But those are the main things you need to know. You need to know the movement system, you need to know the basics of how the mods work, and you need to know the basics of how mastery rank work in order to get the initial enjoyment that you should get out of this game. We'll do another follow-up video soon where we'll talk about some other things, like for example that thing that's kind of over there behind me, that's standing, what's that mean, and lots of other stuff. But these are the 3 things I think it's most important for you to know initially going into the game. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and you'll check out more videos. There will probably be shorter videos on the future where maybe we just cover 1 or 2 topics that are easier to cover. But these, I spent a lot of time on this because these are the 3 things that I think are going to be most important to you enjoying Warframe. If this looks interesting to you, if this video has helped you, please like, share, subscribe. And also, if you've not checked out Warframe yet, please, if you're interested in checking it out, it is a free-to-play game. You can check out my video on should you play Warframe or not, hopefully help you make a decision if you want to. But follow the link in the description. If you sign up through there, we will both get rewarded for that. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon.